Many say para-unity is a myth. Many believe that the paranormal community is toxic, filled with egos, know-it-alls, and wannabe celebrities. Let's clear the air here and now. This thing we call para-unity is what we make it. Tonight, let's do something different. Welcome to Necromancer Live. Hello, and welcome to a very early of the Necromancer Live Show. I'm your host, Justin Brown. Once again, we are here to talk paranormal, this time with Beth Darlington of London, UK. I guess it's the first official interview I've done for someone who reps London. Should be very interesting. We always enjoy the dialect and the proper English, as they say. Before I bring Beth in and have a chat with her, this is going to be a 2-hour chat. We're going to take a break halfway through. 10-12 minutes should suffice. And then we'll continue. Please feel free to share if you're watching the replay of this. Don't be shy. You can drop a comment. Let us know how we did. Ask Beth questions. I was supposed to tag her in this, but if I need to relay any information, you can definitely go to her directly. We'll go over here, and I'm going to read off this very shortened version of her biography for the show, if I can bring it up here real quick. Let's see. Okay. We're talking to Beth Darlington of London, UK. Beth has a drive to provide education for those seeking to get into the paranormal investigation or has questions concerning the unexplained. Beth's qualifications involve mental health first aid, psychology, or parapsychology rather, studying the Rhine Institute, and for over 10 years. Wow, that's pretty cool. The paranormal field of research. Beth travels the world, enjoys speaking at paranormal conferences. So I have watched some of her videos. Actually, Josh Bender, our IR guy, referred Beth to me because I guess he dropped into some of her lives and he liked a lot of things that Beth said, and I agree. He does have an eye for getting good guests. After all, that's how me and Josh met, is through podcasting. So we'll bring Beth over. Thank you very much for joining us. We had to adjust the time schedule so you wouldn't be a zombie on the show, right?
If only I didn't have to work a normal, boring job the next day, I would have gladly have stayed up all hours to be able to talk to you guys.
Well, I would appreciate that, but I just think that you're a little bit sharper when you're talking in your normal awake state. You just can't defy those, pesky fatigue symptoms of drowsiness and lack of concentration, poor memory. I wouldn't want to do it, so I am glad to have you in here at 4 p.m. our time. And it's 10 p.m. your time, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay, so before we get started, guys, if you want to interact with our guests, do so. Just put it down in the chat. I am monitoring YouTube. Jess is on holiday. Missy's got Facebook. If we don't get to your question, that's because we are engaged in a discussion, but periodically we will be looking at the chat, looking at your questions for Beth, and allowing you guys to engage with our guests. So please be patient if we do not get to it right away. Please share. And Beth, I think I want you to kind of elaborate on that little bio I gave. How did you can elaborate on how you kind of got started in the paranormal, what interested you about it, if you had any experiences, and go from there and where it led you to what you do today.
Well, it's funny because it's kind of come full circle. So here I am in the UK at the moment. It started here in the UK, but not a lot of people know of recent that I actually went back to Australia after a couple of years in the UK doing this, and started up a website in Australia and lived there for 10 years. And that's where I got my learning and my grounding when it came to learning more about the paranormal and about paranormal investigating. So it started here in the UK. Went to Australia, and then I've just kind of only in the recent, probably the last 3 months, have come back to the UK to actually grow it even more. And of course, like as you mentioned, often it can start with somebody having an experience. I've had a very open mind from a younger age. You know, I have a sister as well who's equally as open-minded as I am, and we were always fascinated by ghost stories and the possibility of things moving on their own, you know, without anything sort of normally explaining it, or you know, how sometimes some people might actually, you know, sort of know information about other people that they would never have known and have never have met before. So those kinds of things really fascinated me growing up. And my dad had a beautiful old house in Australia, in Western Australia, in a place called York, which is not here in the UK, but in Australia, near Perth. And it's about, in Australia, like with very close to the US. It was about 140 years old at the time. So that was about almost 2 decades ago now, showing my age. But so it gives you an idea. It was quite an old house, the beginning parts of the house. And my dad had painted all the inner walls of it. So he was going to make it into a bed and breakfast. Like, brilliant, wonderful dad, great, awesome. This is his next project. But of course, my sister and I went over and we stayed there, and we, you know, obviously for a couple of days. But on one of the nights there was a loud sliding noise off a wall and a loud bang. And I remember thinking at the time, oh my gosh, like, we both woke up and we were a bit startled. And I said, well, you know, to my sister, did you hear that? She said, yeah. I said, oh, well, what was that? She goes, oh, it must have been one of the pictures have fallen off the wall. I said, oh, we'll just ask Dad in the morning. Didn't think much of it. Rolled over and went to sleep. And the next day at breakfast, it's like, oh, Dad, you know, one of the pictures fell off the walls. He went, well, we've just painted all the walls. There's nothing on them at all. There's nothing hanging. And, you know, obviously back then I wish I'd gone and checked or had a look at different furniture, but it intrigued me. It was a beautiful old building, beautiful, beautiful old building. Historical. It had 4 levels to it. The basement was half underground as well. So back in Australia, that was for 2 different reasons. It was to get away from the hostile Aborigines at the time, because it was a regional area, but also it would keep the place much cooler, because in certain parts of regional Australia it gets really, really warm. So there were 2 different reasons why. So you would go into the basement, it was half underground, then you go into the actual main part of the house itself, and then there were certain levels on top of that, and then there was the attic. So it was just, if only I'd had a little bit more of an investigator brain back then to actually have gone and seen a bit more, or gone to check what could possibly move. But it really kind of spurred on the fact of, I guess you could say, the connection that a lot of people have where something is quite old, there's a lot of known life history there, then obviously there could possibly be something that may be left behind wanting to make its presence known. So that kind of sparked it a little bit more, and it just was always kind of lighting there. So when I came over here to the UK for a working holiday thing with my ex at the time, thinking, yes, I'm just going to travel and do my thing, and I thought, geez, you know, I don't mind those paranormal shows. They're not too bad. You know, this is what I was thinking at the time. My opinion has somewhat changed a little bit, but I still watch for entertainment purposes. And I did a bit of a search on, I think it was, we call it red letter days, or red sort of, you know, it was like those adventure type sort of things. You buy a voucher and you go and do something. I thought, I'll go and have a look. And I thought, what if there's anything about the paranormal? Well, even back then, 12 years ago, it blew up. There was just so many different options. And I thought, wow, I could go here,
Yes.
I could go here, I could go here.
The stream has stopped. I'm live on Facebook still. Where are they saying it stopped?
He's still live on his end.
Really?
I can't get anything. Hold on.
Yeah, it's on Derek's end. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. That's all right. No, we got to check. We're live, man. I could be talking to the wall.
If any of you guys are experiencing interruptions, let me know in the chat. If you are experiencing it, try just refreshing, because it looks like we're still good on my end. They're experiencing some bad weather. Let me warn you. I forgot to warn you. The disclaimer was not complete. It's high winds in the Midwest, so if it freezes or if it does something, if it interrupts, that is probably the culprit.
Yeah, I'm back. It's good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all good. That's all good, girl. I'm all good. It's always good to check.
So you were talking about 12 years ago, there was a lot of interest in actually going out and investigating some of these old places in your area, in London specifically.
Yeah, Yeah, heaps. But and just out of London as well, which for somebody who doesn't wasn't or didn't have a car at the time made it a bit interesting. But there was just so much more possibility for that. So I thought, great, it ended towards the 2 years of being here originally because my ex's visa was running out. So I'm like, obviously we're heading back home. And I thought, I can't wait to get stuck into it in Australia. It's going to be fantastic to keep this interest going. And then nothing. Tumbleweed rolls across the floor. I was like, hello, 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 hello. There was nothing. You had probably maybe 2 or 3 ghost tours in Sydney, which is a big city, and maybe 1 or 2 in Melbourne, which is another part of Australia as well, which has a decent population, and that was it. There was no actual proper paranormal investigating type stuff. And I thought to myself, this is annoying. I'm being extremely G-rated when I say that. So I kind of thought, why can't they? And I went on the website again, and I thought, there was so many great places, obviously in America at the time, obviously in the UK, but there was no website that had anything just for investigating in Australia. And that's why I started my website. So like, this is it. I'm going to start something that's just going to list all the different types of it. It was just before Facebook really got quite a big place for people who were interested in the paranormal. So there would at least to be somewhere for you to go find groups or find events, and then you could go to Facebook. Now it's the other way around. And it's been there for quite a while. So I had different workshops and different events and things like that listed on there that I kept an eye out for any other teams or groups that started to grow, because it started to pick up in Australia, because a lot of more people were starting to watch these programs that you may love or hate. But, if they weren't there, these groups wouldn't start, this interest wouldn't be here, and people wouldn't feel like they could actually go and do it for 2 reasons, as we know. Do it for finding help for other people, or doing it for the experience for themselves. It's usually 1 or 2. Right. And so that's was starting to build a lot more. And so this is where Access Paranormal originally started. So, and now obviously it's a lot more international. It's not more about everybody else being a part of it, but certainly not excluding Australia, never will, because that's obviously a very important part of it. But yeah, it grew from there. And of course, learning. I love the learning part of it. I love the learning side of investigating, where it comes to helping other people do it from a really logical perspective, because people kind of go 1 or 2 ways when it comes to investigating. They'll either come along and they'll want to experience something and they'll be intrigued and they want to learn more, or they just like the atmosphere and the enjoyment of being in the environment. Nothing is wrong. One is more about paranormal investigating. The other side's more about ghost hunting. Nothing is wrong with either. It just depends who does what and what they want to do. Obviously, for Access Paranormal, it's more about the investigating side of it and actually giving people information for them to be able to go off and do what they need to do, or find out more information from a really cool, logical perspective. There's that kind of middle-level paranormal investigator kind of stuff. So in a very long-winded way, that's kind of how I started. And it's just blown from there. It's all the courses I've done, all the speaking and conferences I've done, obviously there in the States as well, with Scarefest and Las Vegas Paracon, and obviously attending places here as well. So I'm very, very lucky and fortunate, and continuing to grow.
Well, that's awesome. Your passion definitely shows. So to compress down what you're saying, you felt a void in Australia as far as people wanting to go out, find places to maybe experience some paranormal activity for themselves, or catch, the virus, as they say. You want people to go out and see what it has to offer, get them engaged, and grow a community, which I think is cool. The first thing I think of when I think of Australian paranormal research is Craig Powell. Are you familiar with Craig?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I thought so. I love Craig. He reminds me of you, but yeah, he's a guy. He's not obviously a female.
Different.
Yeah, but the seriousness and down to earth approach to trying to do, or to validate the paranormal through critical thinking, maybe even using science in a way to objectify how you investigate and approach, understanding the paranormal, maybe learning about psychology, maybe learning about natural phenomena, how we perceive things, understanding that. I mean, looking at your website, I understand that you get that, and that's a lot about what you try to educate on. I really want to get into that, but I want to catch up with these questions first. There's a few on Facebook. We'll get it out of the way so we don't stack them up.
Yeah, cool.
Missy, do you want to go ahead and
You want me to do my shout outs first?
Yeah, I almost forgot. Do the shout outs.
Okay. I have Josh, I have Troy, I have David, I have Derek, I have Valerie, I have Becky, and I have Michelle and Wes. Josh wanted me to ask her, I guess, what she thought of the Archive of the Afterlife in Moundsville.
It's a paranormal museum next to a prison and an Indian mound.
Yes, and I did go there, and I actually really liked it. Because I like the fact that it was not the typical. Sometimes with museums in certain locations, also in the States, which shall not be named, can be a bit more opulent for their reasons. I like the fact that this is not so showy in that way. I like the passion behind the individual that has created it as well. Really lovely guy, very down to earth, and again, there are people that are passionate about it where it doesn't take too long for you to be in their presence to know just that's where genuinely that comes from. And I think this gentleman certainly is that as well. So
Steve Hummel.
Steve Hummel, awesome. Hard out, Steve. He's lovely, lovely guy. Got a lot of time for him. So, and yeah, I loved being there. And as I said, again, coming and having spent a lot of time in the paranormal sense in Australia as opposed to any other parts of the world, to have I guess you could say exposure, or to be able to see the type of artifacts this gentleman has been able to gather from some extremely iconic locations. It blew me away, and I was really, really thankful for the fact that we actually did manage to go across and actually have a look at this place and actually be able to wander through. So, and again, Steve's lovely. He took the time out. He's not somebody who's in it for the wrong reason. So he will, it's like, oh, thanks for coming. He'll sit there and talk to you and what are your interests and all this, explain things as well. So lovely, lovely gentleman, really, really lucky. So I loved it. So thank you for that question. It was a great experience. And I highly recommend anyone who wants to go along as well in the area, pop in, say hi to Steve and go and check it out, because these places are fabulous to go and check out. The passion that goes behind it, and I guess the energy goes into trying to find these locations, the type of objects, and to bring them in and make it into something like that is something that is really great from a paranormal perspective. Look at residual hauntings. I would love to spend a night there on my own just to explore it. I'm glad I'm not psychic or anything that way. I can only imagine how they would feel. They feel very probably overwhelmed. But for myself, I'm about exactly. That's exactly it. I'm about as psychic as this pillow. You know what I mean? So it's like, I wouldn't feel it. So I take my hat off to anyone who would be in a situation as such. So yeah.
That's cool. Kind of off topic real quick. Missy, do you notice that comment from the actual page about roulette raffle?
Yeah, I do.
Are we being hacked right now?
I think we might be.
This is what it reads. I don't want to read it, but I definitely didn't do it, and I know Missy didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
So if you can see that on the screen, that is not us. That has never happened before on our show. The Russians are watching. Disregard the roulette raffle, guys. I did not do that, but I'll go ahead and do the shout outs for YouTube. The Dark One was with us when we started out. I've never noticed him before, so if you're new, thanks for joining us. We got Mountain View turning with us. We have Sam Thomas, Kasha Gems, Above Paranormal is on YouTube. And I think, we have Damo Lind, who just subscribed recently. Thank you for subscribing, Damo. If I'm mispronouncing your name, I am sorry. And I don't see any questions yet. If you're on YouTube, I'm multitasking. If I didn't see your question, write it out all in caps, so I know that you're trying to ask Beth a question.
I have a couple more questions.
All right.
Troy said, Beth, love the accent. Have you ever done any investigations here in the States? And if so, where were your favorite places?
Oh, luckily I have been to the States about 6 years in a row. Each year I go, and I think 6 or 7 years now. Love it, absolutely love it. And also, well, I'm not being biased, but I do love the Midwest. There's just something about the Southern gentleman that just makes me tip my invisible hat. But yes, there's so many beautiful places. I've been to Waverly Hills with only 2-3 other people. We hired the location out on our own a couple of years ago for a whole night. I could have spent a whole year there. You can imagine that's probably one of the top ones, I would imagine, for an investigation location, because it's so well known. And as we know with locations, one night never really speaks the volume of that particular place. It could be quiet one night, it could be off. They say in Australia, offers chops. It could be amazing the next night, like that kind of thing. So it could, and yet the next 4 nights, it could be nothing. That's what it is. It's spontaneous phenomena. So it's going to be up and down. But I would love to have spent way more time in Waverly Hills. I've been to, what's the ship in Long Beach? Queen Mary, there we go. Been to Queen Mary. Been to Binion's Casino in Vegas as well. Myrtle's Plantation in Louisiana. That was lovely too. Just incredible. I think just the building itself. And this sort of thing, after a while, it almost starts to become like the excitement. It's almost like visiting a celebrity sometimes to me with these locations. It's like, okay, so I've only got one night to be here. And you could be, and often you are very tired when you get there because you would have traveled coming from another part of the world. But you just make it work, and it's incredible. So you just push yourself to the limits with these fabulous places. But it's the history, and as I said, it's just like meeting a celebrity. So there's Myrtle's Plantation there as well. Moundsville I did earlier this year, as a lot of people would have known as well, in West Virginia, near the fabulous museum that we've just spoken about. So there's a couple of key places. There's a couple of other ones that I haven't, that aren't as well known. Some in San Antonio, like the Texas Culture Center, I think it is there. That's got some really interesting, I guess you could say, activity. It's kind of like the first place I actually got my first, and I use the term loosely, EVP, only because it was someone else's recording device and someone else was asking the question, but I just happened to be there. I sometimes kind of joke where I've never really had a proper EVP because I probably haven't shut up long enough for them to come through. But it's more the fact that I just think sometimes there's atmosphere type thing, and obviously a location thing. But in that particular location, I was hearing things on real-time EVP recording that I've not had before. So that also has potential. So as you can imagine, there's some really key locations I have investigated in the States, but there's also the ones that don't have as much of a voice or as well known, that equally need a high five when it comes to potential activity when it comes to the paranormal. So I do, and I love the States. I love it. I've got family in San Francisco. Like I said, I try to go every year if I can, because it's just there's just so much of your beautiful country to go and explore. And now that I'm on the other side, closer to the east side, the temptation is even more so there to be able to kind of hop across, for a week or something, as opposed to having to take 2 to 3 weeks where it would be coming from the other side in Australia. So yeah, great question there, mate. Very good.
Yeah, the U.S. is like a melting pot of so many different cultures, including, the UK, even Australian. You can find similarities in culture and even the look of the terrain. I would imagine there's so many different types of terrain in the U.S. that it could harken back to anybody's home if they saw it. That's kind of a cool thing about the U.S. It's kind of like a melting pot. Any other questions on Facebook?
No. Debbie Stafford is on, and Christy Brown is on.
Oh, that would be my significant other.
Yes.
Oh.
Beth, I definitely have questions for you. I think the first one, you spoke about EVP. Is that something that you research? Do you do EVP research? How do you do it? And what is your take on the proper way to classify something as an EVP versus something that you cannot be sure? Maybe it's an acoustic anomaly, something that, we could hear with your ears that came through. How, kind of elaborate on how you do your EVP research, if you do that.
Yes, I do. I think when it comes to audio recordings in that sense, it's probably one of my passions. Some people really love the SLS camera, or some people really love EMF detectors. For me, it's got to be sound. To me, sound just feels more human to me. Hearing footsteps is like, to me, such a human sound, more so than a voice, because it just seems so renaissance of it. So, and of course, at the same time, our brains are programmed to hear voices in everything because that's the most common thing we've ever heard. So it being aware of the fact that your brain's going to turn even a slightest sound that may not be a voice into a voice, we have to be very careful, extremely more so careful when it comes to investigating the paranormal, but not dismissive, just being aware of. So that's probably one of the first key things when it comes to the research that I do is making sure that I have that in the back of my mind. And it can be difficult because sometimes if you hear something, you're like, oh, this could be it. No, maybe not. Multiple recording devices, I think, is a big tip as well that I would pass on if anyone wants to keep being more involved in this. Multiple recording is as far as audible as well as visual. I think it's good having other video recorders as well, because then you can actually see what people are saying at the same time, where they are in the room, who was in the room, who was speaking, that kind of thing. It's a visual representation as well. Also, don't put them if you can, on the floor, because the slightest sound can sound like somebody whispering. If you can, keep a little sponge with you. And wherever you place your video, your audio or your video, I would actually even probably suggest that as well, but more so audible, place it on the actual sponge, because that will absorb any particular vibration from any hard surface you put it on, whether it's on a table, whether it's on the floor, whether it's on anything else. That will at least eliminate less possible contamination when it comes to other sounds from the room, from shuffling, because often it can be old buildings where, you could hear someone from here to next year, as we say. So that's another thing as well. I as I said, like, I'm very, very passionate about the sense of with the sound side of things. I've heard, there's been a time where I was in a particular building. We have what we call sonic ears. For those who know the terminology, it obviously amplifies sound through a bionic type device. It really looks like you're literally listening out for planes, but it's like it's a kind of cone you put around your pet when they've had surgery around their head, but it looks like that. You stick a microphone through it, and then of course you've got your headphones on, and the sounds I've heard from those kind of devices have been really interesting. Again, keeping in mind we're built to survive, so everything's going to sound like a voice, but I've heard people wheeling chairs, walking, squeaking tables, opening and closing of windows and doors when there's no wind and there's nothing else in that building and you're the only people there. So that kind of stuff is just, that's what I find sound more mysterious in that way, because it just seems more human in that way. I think with visual, it can be more explained because it could be the pixels, it could be this and that. But with sound, I think it's more difficult, and I think I like the challenge of that. I think that's my biggest part. But I do love to research it. I have a library of sounds that I create when I'm on investigations purposely. And the reason why I do that is then when I come across something I think might be paranormal, I can compare the sound wave visually, not just audibly, to what I've actually got recorded, so I can actually say, no, it's too similar to this particular sound. It's more than likely something explainable if I can't at the time. So I've actually got a library of explainable sounds, so when I do think I have something I can actually see, or actually, no, it sounds like this. No, it actually, I will count that out. To me, it has to be as clear as day in order for me to remotely want to put it forward for anybody to listen to and or to analyze in that regard. So I have a couple of different methods to work all that stuff out.
That's cool. I like how you cross-check it with other stuff to see if there's similarities. I don't know if I've heard of that approach too much. I have seen that with EMF research, though, so I guess it's synonymous with that, and I can see how they would apply to both. Do you? Well, the one mic you explained, it sounded like you were explaining a parabolic mic, the one with the dish. Okay. So do you believe that EVP is acoustic? It sounds like you're trying to listen for like some type of residual audio phenomena, something that's maybe not electronic at all. Have you ever, like you mentioned multiple recorders, have you ever found one piece of audio on one recorder, not the others, in which you classify that differently?
I have found that in the past with investigations that I've been a part of, not of my own equipment, but the team that I've been investigating with have actually had a voice appear on one recorder, and one recorder not being within, we say in Australia, like a metre or two away, and not have recorded anything. So why is it that recorder that picks up the sound? Why is it that one? Is it directional? Because often there have been times where other people have explained to me, and I've heard this as well, where you're like you're in the sound. And I've had that before as well, where people have experienced, like, I felt like I couldn't pick the direction of where I heard those feet, or I couldn't pick the direction where I heard that whisper. And someone else says, I couldn't pick it either. I thought it was around me, or I thought it was around me. So could it be surround sound? Or could it be directional? So that's, is it purposeful? Like you say, is it something where it could be maybe a residual thing where somebody wants to intentionally tell you, but why one microphone, not the other? Is it maybe that microphone could pick up a certain level of hertz where the other one does not? We don't know. Like, is it a cheaper one? Is it a more expensive one? Like, maybe we're wasting too much money on expensive microphones and just go with the cheaper version, and that seems to be okay. But it really just depends, I think. Again, we should also take in the people's personal experiences when they hear this as well. Where's their mind at when they hear that? Where were they standing where they heard that as well? Equipment's important. What we record is important, but I also think people's data when it came to that particular time should also be recorded just as much as that as well. And I think that's not happening as much as it should from an investigating perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, human perception is at the end of every interpretation of everything, despite what tool or sense you use. It's always going to be filtered through human perception. And even when you're trying to stay objective, you have to keep in mind all the confirmation biasy type things. You have to, understand the psychological standpoint. Before we shift gears and ask more questions from chat, have you ever considered a hypothesis that states or claims that some EVP, when it comes across just one input and not the multiple setup, could be a manipulation of the microphone itself or the transducer inside? Like maybe they're using some type of method to only manipulate that microphone versus the other ones. Do you think that's possible?
I think it's not impossible to rule it out. I think it'd be silly to rule it out. A friend of mine that was many years ago, that being one of the few mediums that I trusted at the time, had said to me, one thing you must always ask yourself when stuff happens like this is, why would spirit do it? If there was a spirit, if there was a ghost, if this existed, why would spirit do it? So why would a spirit want to only talk to one microphone and not the other? So that would be my other question. Like, well, what's special about that? And why not that? Is it because I own this and you know that? Or is it because you like the look of this, or you feel it's easier to speak to this, or is it more familiar for where you are and what technology you know of? So I think it's almost like with the paranormal, you open a can of worms, all you've got to do is ask why. Why would a spirit want to do that? Why would it pick one microphone and not multiple ones? Or why, like I said, some people feel like they hear it all around, and why some do not? Is it about here, or is it about the environment? And that's always what I say with particular learning content that I provide. Is you've got to start literally with any experience when it comes to the paranormal. Is it coming from in here, or is it coming from the environment? And then you start to go, or it can be both, but you need to literally start from there and then start to find your rabbit warren from there. So that's how I would look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I totally agree with what you're saying. And people come up with ideas as long as they're putting their ideas to test. They're experimenting with it. They're practicing those ideas to get data that would support their ideas. A lot of people have these claims and these theories and ideas, but they're not really doing anything to find evidence to support their ideas. And that's what I always advocate, because we never know if if you don't at least attempt that. I want to ask Kasha Jim's question for you real quick, and maybe we have some on Facebook after. Hi, Beth. Has there ever been a property that you investigated that you would choose not to go back because of the activity?
Great question, mate. Great question. There was one property, and the thing is, though, I will have to say I did actually go back to it a couple of times afterwards, but it was the only property that I felt the most fear at. And it wasn't a place that I went to only a year or two in starting to investigate. It was probably around the 5-year mark, so about halfway through. It's an undisclosed location in New South Wales. So if anyone in Australia is watching this, they will know exactly where I'm talking about. For those who know, because they know of where I live and where I would have frequented. And I think that place is now actually gone, to be honest, now, been knocked down. But it was, in its heyday, it had so many layers of, if anyone could sit there and say if there was a spiritual lasagna, it was this place. It was what the building originally was, and then there was anger and angst towards that and intense emotion. Then there would have been what happened after that, where the building changed, and it would have been quite an intense location because of that. And then after that, there's the realization that there would have been ancient energy within the grounds as well, from an Indigenous Australian perspective. And it just felt like it's almost like the perfect storm. If you have strong emotion by a lot of people in a particular concentrated area, what's going to happen is something's going to build, something could possibly manifest. We're talking possibilities here. We always do with the paranormal, but that's the fascinating part. We don't really know. So let's look at these ideas. And that's one of the ideas of this place. And that's where I heard the walking footsteps and the trolley, and I've had doors slamming, I've had things thrown, I've had people pushed, I've seen people's chairs knocked out from under them, people scratched. Incredible. In this particular location over a couple of years. And as I said, there was one night of investigating where it got to the point where everybody in the team was just ready to go. We were like, we're done, we're finished. There is too much here that just felt uncomfortable and not right. It was too much to absorb, and anyone who's ever experienced something that would be considered possible paranormally active, once you've experienced it, changes you. It changes you. It changes your perspective on life. It changes your perspective on how things work in the world. And that's one of those nights where it did that for me. The other time was when I was living here in the UK, but that was the only other time in Australia where I went home and just thought, I can't look at the world the same way again. I went to work, on the following Monday, and people were talking about, going out with their mates and stuff. I'm sitting there thinking, I've seen shit move and I can't explain it. You know what I mean? Like, how do you say that to people when you work in engineering? Like, you can't. It changes you. And I think a lot of us on that night changed, or our perspective changed. So yeah, there was that particular night, that same location I did go to afterwards, but the activity really over time decreased. And again, that leads me to believe that sometimes if you frequent a place that's potentially got lots of activity over time, if you do so, I think sometimes you can wear it out. It almost decreases to a point. It doesn't increase, it decreases. It's almost like you've used whatever is up, or your curiosity or whatever is being asked out all the time, after a while to start going, I can't be here, man. I can't be on show. Like, I don't know how it works on the other side, but that's my thoughts. But it was at that time, the only time I was happy to leave a location and go home and not have to deal with it. And that was very rare. Being, as you know, and most people who'll be watching this who love investigating the paranormal, if that happens, then it's got to be a pretty intense place. And I wasn't the only person that night that actually had gone through that. Yeah.
Do you normally go into each location with the same mindset? You don't expect too much. You're going to stay objective. You're not trying to allow your, suggestive elements of the location being haunted before you go in. Are you careful about that? Because if you are, then having that unexpected, unusual activity to occur to you would be much more significant to you and me as well. Because the second part of this question would be, do you think our perception has a role in not only how we perceive the paranormal and its happenings, but how frequent it is and how strong it is?
Absolutely. There could be all different things happening in my life at the time that will change my experience when I go on an investigation. So I could be having a really tough time at work, which will automatically change my perception of what I experience when it comes to possible paranormal phenomena on investigation. I think that being aware of the fact that whatever frame of mind that you're in because we're people, stuff's going to happen. Things are not going to go great. Someone might be unwell in your family, or you're having a crap day at work, or crap week, or crap month, or your boss is being horrible. And I'm being so G-rated. There's so many other words I would like to mention, but I won't. So that kind of stuff going on. You catching what I'm pitching, right? So
right.
That kind of stuff can happen. So, but that can also change your experience when you go to an investigation too. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I know there are some teams that are a lot more spiritually based that will, if one or two of the people in their team aren't in a great place, or they're going through a bit of, uncomfortableness with life, may not necessarily be like, I left my keys at home, so I'm just going to have to go, or I left my phone kind of thing. It means like, I'm going through something quite difficult. They actually won't allow those particular members to go on an investigation because they're like, you're not in a good place. Head, mind, and spirit. So when you go into a place, you're going to be more open to anything that's not great. Mm-hmm. So there's that too. So there are other teams that can be quite spiritually open in that way as well. So I think definitely your perception of how you see things and being aware of who you are at the time when you go into an investigation as well. I actually sometimes have found that investigating has been the opposite, in the sense where I've had a shitty day at work and I'm like, I can't wait to get to this investigation because it's what I love to do. And I've actually flipped over and actually enjoyed it more because it has been the distraction that I've needed. So I've actually found for myself it's been the opposite. But there are some teams that are very, very wary, particularly the very spiritual minded ones and more about mediumship and psychic ability, will actually be quite aware of their team members not being in the right frame of mind before they go in. So they actually won't allow them. All those team members will step back and go, I'm not in a great frame. My energy's off. I'm not going to be there, sort of thing. So I think, perception, intention, and knowing who you are is very important.
Awesome. Before I forget, Nisaba has stopped by. She wanted me to tell you that she can't stay for very long, but she wanted to say hi. And she misses you back in Australia.
Miss you too.
Any questions on Facebook that I did not see come through, Missy?
Yes. Val asked, what is your favorite equipment to use when investigating?
For a long time, it used to be my EMF, my Mel meter, only because it's multifunctional. So it has the REM on it. It's got the temperature gauge on it. And of course, it's got the EMF detector on it as well. And I think for me being an independent paranormal investigator, it's a 3-gadget-in-1 type thing. So that is quite handy to have, because all I got to do is just have it in my pocket and I'm good to go, or in my handbag, as you do. But I'm actually finding more so my audio recorder, my voice recorder has actually been the one I'm talking to right now, which is my H1. That to me is probably my most favorite in that sense. And that, as I said, is my passion for the sound side of it. I think it's the mystery behind it. And I find that I find it more difficult to try and dispel, because it can be so subjective. So I would have to say it's my voice recorder. I know it sounds boring. It's not like, I'm going to have some magic like the SLS or something fancy like that. It's like, no, it's pretty bog standard.
That's the answer most people give me, is a good high quality audio recorder. And I do back up the Zoom recorders. We use the same recorder you use all the way up to Zoom H6s. I mean, that and Tascam, it's right in our budget, and the quality is, very good for the money. Any other questions?
Awesome.
Yeah, I have one more.
Okay.
Do you feel drained after an investigation?
Yes. The thing is, though, for me, it's more from feeling like you've done an overnighter as opposed to a spiritual thing. For me, it's more the fact that I work the bog standard, 9-to-5 style job type stuff. So from that perspective, having to do an investigation overnight, I do feel drained from a physical being up late at night. And it's not just being up. It's not to say to take it away from anyone who does security jobs at all. I wouldn't say that in the slightest. But most of the time when you are investigating, you are pretty switched on. And there have been times that even when I've gotten home, and I know there will be some investigators who will also be nodding when they hear this, is that you actually, you head home and then you start to kind of settle in, and you're in your home, and then suddenly you hear a sound, you go, what's that? And there's what's that? Like you literally, you're still on investigator mode. You haven't been able to switch off. And there are times where I'll sit there and go, I can hear something. What was that? Did it tap twice? Did it? Like literally, it will take me an hour or two after I get home to switch off from being in investigator mode. So I may be tired, but my brain's still going. So it's that. So yeah, I do tire a fair bit with regards to that. But then, of course, everyone knows about the whole paranormal hangover style type thing, and the fact that it does feel like you've worked about a week in one 24-hour period. So just travel internationally, you still feel the same way. And trust me, I've been there, particularly when you miss your flights. But and another thing as well, a lot of people will ask is whether or not I spiritually protect myself, because a lot of people say you feel tired when you go home if you've dealt with negative energies, or you've dealt in a very possibly paranormal active place. For myself, I don't. I think it's each to their own. It's a very individual thing. I don't. For me, I'm there to experience. I'm there to experience what's going to happen in that location. Touch wood, nothing's ever happened, but I don't think it will, because I go in with the mindset that I'm there to experience. I'm not there to upset. I'm not there to aggravate. I'm there to observe and learn. And I think that alone is my protection, I guess you could say. But then again, if somebody feels more comfortable in wanting to do that, so they can feel when they come home they're going to be okay, by all means, 100% do it. It's all about empowerment, and if you ever do private or residential cases, it's all about empowering people in their own homes so that knowing that they feel safe. And it's not through just saying that; it's actually saying, you've got the right of way. You believe it. It is. It's about intent, and it's the same thing, I think, when it comes to that as well, for protection for investigators too.
Yes, absolutely. I agree 100%. Speaking about being affected and influenced by maybe some paranormal phenomena, have you ever been touched physically at all?
I think I have, which doesn't make it. It's like, come on, lady. But no, I think I have. I was at a location called Maitland Jail in New South Wales in Australia, and I was standing probably about 1.5 meters away from a doorway, which was known as Satan's cell. You'd be horrified to know the kind of experiments I did in there, but anyway, not really, really bad, but anyway. So I digress. So what happened was I was standing there and I felt like it's almost like a fingernail go across your face. And I'm standing there and nobody's around me. And I'm a meter and a half away from the door. And it's like someone just did this. And I'm like, and the ceilings are high. I'm talking meters high. I was like, what's going on? I looked around. I was like, what's going on? And interesting enough, one of the mediums that of the team came up, and she wandered through. I said, she said, what's wrong? I said, I felt like something just kind of went across my face. It was like a kind of like a fingernail. It was weird. She went, oh, and she went, oh. I said, well, what's wrong? She went, okay. She says, well, I picked up earlier that someone had stood in the area that you're in and got slashed across the face in a fight in that particular spot. Now, I take it with a grain of salt, but I certainly felt something move with pressure across my cheek. But it felt strange, really strange in that sense. Like, I was like, you start to question it, like, but I know nobody was there. But I was there and nobody was there. And I saw nobody was near my face. Nothing was near my, like, and you start to go over and over and over in your head, like, but I know, okay, no, I checked this. It's the only time I think something may have possibly have touched me, and it was across my face. It wasn't like a, hey, how you doing, tug or anything. No, it was across the face. So, but, I as I said, maybe I'm just so nonchalant, as I say, about going into places. Eventually maybe something will happen in a way where it's like, haha, you asked for it. So we'll see. But that's the closest thing for me.
I don't know if it's, that happened to you because you weren't expecting it and they were trying to prove something. I don't think that's the case. What's interesting about what you said is it felt like a fingernail. A lot of people report scratches. A lot of skeptics will go to places not believing anything, and they'll come out with a scratch and be like, okay, maybe that kind of aligns with what you said. They're kind of in the back of their mind wanting something to happen so they know if it is legit. What do you think about that? I know you mentioned you've only been slightly touched. What do you think about the scratches? Do you think that as like an attack, or is that something different entirely? Or does it depend?
Oh, it's almost like, I think you've got to really take into account the location where it happens and the kinds of people that it happens to. I would love to have the time and money to research the types of people that get scratched, not just the location. I think, is it a type of person that asks for it? Is it a type of age group? Does it happen more with women? Does it happen more with men? The three thing that can be explained, because the three fingers on your hand, those three are the strongest in your fingers. So of course, if you're going to put your hand down anything, that's going to happen. So that people say it's mocking the Trinity. No, it's not. It's actually just a normal handprint. It's actually got nothing to do with anything to do with three. Whatever's going to want to scratch you, if there is such a thing, is actually got just pressure on those three and just didn't have enough on your thumb and your other finger, on that side. So that to me is a thing that doesn't get communicated out as much. But yeah, I'd like to find out the research of the frequency of it happening. I know there's a location in Adelaide in Australia, that Z Ward, and tours run by Adelaide's Haunted Horizons, and they've had lots of people being scratched in a particular, and Z Ward was a ward for the criminally insane, and they found people that they've got a library of people being scratched, and sort of on like a monthly basis. And there'll be months where nothing will happen, and then there'll be a week where almost every tour it happens. So it's like, to me, what's the perfect storm? What's the great lasagna about? I want to find out what has encouraged this. Is it always about the group there or the kinds of people there, that kind of thing? So scratches are very, very interesting. And I mean, I've recent some who have watched, I think over the last year, a particular paranormal TV program that went to a particular residential place, and somebody had claimed they were being scratched, but then there was footage they had shown of that person also going up around their back, even though they said they couldn't move their arm, if you get my drift, able to do that. So there's these things to keep in mind as well. So, but again, that's a whole different ballgame. You're not going, if you're dealing with private and residential cases, that's the kind of stuff you need to be aware of. But if you're talking about your Waverly Hills or your Queen Mary boat type stuff, you're going to, I think it's really interesting to know how frequently it is, what's happening with regards to if it's more male, female. Is it the type of people that are making it happen? Is it not? Because, like I said, is it the perfect storm, or is it more to do with the people themselves?
Right. Good, very good questions. I know Nocturnal Research Society wants to know if you've seen a full-bodied apparition.
I think I have. I know people are like, oh, come on, just say it. I think I have. I was in a particular old pub in New South Wales called the Bushranger, and it's, as they say, out in the middle of nowhere, which is not very difficult in Australia, but it's very of the era of the Bushrangers, if anyone knows, the colonial times, the early times of Australia was when it was built. And so I was lucky to be there with a particular paranormal team, and I was sitting there in the bar area, and we just settled down really to kind of start to investigate. So it was after midnight, the bar had closed, we finally were able to get in, put our equipment up and all that kind of thing. I was sitting there, and I'm sort of we're kind of asking out a little bit. It was really just the initial side of it, And so we're sitting there, and someone had said, oh, is anyone here? And I don't know if anyone knows those kinds of, sometimes they'll do with buildings where they'll have a wall, but they'll cut a bit out in the along the bar of the back, which then they just put glass, but it's only a slither. It's only half a meter sort of size, so you can actually see across to the other room, but it's not a full cutout, so you can't see all of it, but you can see people walking past, but behind the bar. It's a bit of a fancy thing they do with buildings these days. And I looked across, and there was somebody in blue overalls with this long, semi-longish browny blondie hair. It was kind of straight, but it was shortish around here. I can even remember to this day. Walked past it. Now, we're the only people in the building. We're paranormal investigators. We're all in black, okay? That's the colour of our people, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's hard floors. So I'm sitting there. The first thing I was like, oh, there's a guy there. That's the first thing. I went, hang on a second. He's in weird clothing. Hang on a second. Everything's locked. Hang on. We're the only people here. What's going on? So it's like I got up from my seat. I ran around the corner. And as I looked, there was nobody there. Then I figured, hang on a second. I've heard no footsteps. It's hard floors. What's going on? So, and I looked around, and one other person saw it at the same time. And he's like, yeah, I saw that too. I'm like, did you see this? Yeah, I saw exactly the same thing. And to this day, he swears with it too. So, and that's, but it was, like I said, it's that almost like but hang on, but no, I didn't hear, you start to realize, hang on a second, this could have been something, because it just does not make sense. But and as you would know as well, I saw a ghost, and it was glowing, and it was flowing, and had chains, and it had a sheet around. Hell no, this is not how it works. If you think you've seen an apparition, it's going to be as like flesh and blood as you and me. And often there can be stories of people actually having conversations for like a minute sometimes, and then that person turns around, turns away, and that person has disappeared. That is what apparitions actually are. Bless Ghostbusters, love them hard out. I'm a big fan, but it doesn't work like that. So from what we perceive on this side. So yeah, that was where I think I may have actually seen it, but having somebody else, what I call is witness collaboration, having somebody else having seen it at the same time was pretty cool too, because often there could be a solo experience and you carry that with you, but to have someone else go, I saw the same thing, I'm like, yes, high five. Amazing. Very cool. But
it's always cool to have that person telling you, hey, you're not crazy, you're not seeing stuff, it was there. It couldn't have been anybody there, but yet they're there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we've reached the halfway point. We're going to take about a 12-minute break. Please don't go anywhere. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what Beth is trying to do with her paranormal work and her website and the educational side of things. I really want her to convey her intentions in that area. When we come back, please don't go anywhere unless you need to use the bathroom or grab some popcorn or whatever. But we'll see you back here in 10 or 10, 12 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness. Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good.
See you. What the fuck was that?
On Saturday, November 30th, take your journey into the supernatural into one of Ohio's most wicked jails. Built in 1889, the old Licking County Jail was home to its fair share of dangerous inmates, leading to 14 inmate deaths as well as 4 sheriffs. These violent deaths inevitably led to the closure of the jail in 1987. Join us for a night of history and an overnight ghost hunt you'll never forget. Your journey awaits.
Your audio from your lavalier. Did the power go off?
Well, I felt like I got pinched, but it wasn't like a
Did the
pinch.
display turn off?
This just died.
You gotta be kidding me.
It just died.
Okay, that's brand new lithium ion batteries. We'll keep rolling, dude. There's
Yeah, but at least that one's definitely documented it. That's still rolling. That camera.
Oh yeah, this is rolling too.
Yeah, these just freaking died.
Let me double check.
I held it in. The light came on to the title screen. And
Dude, I'm starting to feel really like weird sensations touching me, dude. I don't know what's going on.
yeah, it felt like something.
Yeah,
Like just dead as a doornail. And those are brand new.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the World Wide Web of Weird with the latest in paranormal news.
Hi, I'm Eric McGill.
And I'm David Woolever.
And we are paranormal investigators welcoming you to join us as we put new theories to the test and attempt to explain strange phenomena. We invite you on a journey that will give you a glimpse into our haunted minds. Hi guys, Eric McGill here, RU Media Network and Our Haunted Minds. I just want to talk to you guys real quick about the awesome stuff going on behind the scenes. The Our Haunted Minds video is coming along swimmingly, and it's really going to be awesome. As you guys know, Adam Kimmel is joining us for the first investigation with Dave and I. And then after that, we may have Chris, or we may have Becca, or we may have Ashley. But it's really exciting, and you guys are not going to want to miss this first one. A lot of awesome stuff happened.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Goose.
And I'm Michael Bradley.
Is that what you're calling yourself tonight?
Heisenberg.
Not the Angry Kitty.
Max Braggins.
Anywho, we're the hosts of the Cryptic Paranormal Show.
On our show, we'll talk about all things paranormal except Bigfoot. He freaks me out.
Really, dude?
You know that, but I mean, I guess we could talk about him as long as I don't have to see him.
We will talk. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about all fields in the paranormal realm.
And every week, we will interview new guests, celebrities, and researchers in the field, and all our comrades in the paranormal underground.
And we aren't afraid to ask the hard questions no one else will. Our conversations are rooted in our own experiences as paranormal investigators.
So be prepared to have your minds, your opinions, and your beliefs challenged.
And let's not forget to warn them about all the tomfoolery and shenanigans. Let's just say, you might want to put the kiddos to bed before tuning in. They don't call us the paranormal shock jocks for nothing.
Do they call us that?
If they don't, they will.
So be sure to tune into the Cryptic Paranormal Show every Thursday night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only on RU Media Network.
Spook you later, crypto heads.
Bye.
Shut up.
And welcome back to the Necromancer Live Show. Thanks for hanging on to your seats and lasting through the break. I know it can be easy just to walk off when, you know, we're not trying to retain your attention, but here we are back again. Now, Beth, I want to know what keeps you going. I know that you mentioned that your desire to want to build a paranormal presence in an area where there wasn't one. Now that it's like international, does the lack of proper paranormal education in pop culture and TV still drive you to still want to educate and still want to try to provide some type of information that's there to combat that? Let's just say it's something that we have to fight against. What is your thoughts on that?
If anything, I think it makes me want to do so more. But there's a certain approach in how you do it. So I'm not going to sit there guns blazing telling people that they're doing it wrong. My God, do you know what an EMF detector does? Do you know why you're using it? I'm not someone who's going to sit there and throw stones at people in that regard, because with all respect, I was that person when I started. That's the first thing. Second thing, you're not going to get people to listen if you sit there and throw stones at them in that way, or throw the anger and the angst at people for the reasons why they do things. A lot of times, as we know, people who possibly get into this field of interest is due to those particular shows. So, okay, instead of hating on the fact they're doing it, actually let them know if and when they're ready, and if they want to listen, this is something else that's a bit different. You know what? This is the reason why we're doing this. You know what? Sometimes that may not work. Here's some information. Let them make their own minds up. If they're the people that are wanting to take that path and similar to you, they're going to follow, or they're going to want to know more. I think the way to pass information on is not to be a dictatorship. It's here's the information. Here's if you want to know about it. If it's not, that's cool. Go and do your own thing as well. And there's a lot of people, as we know, post those fabulous orb photos. I'm not a fan of it personally myself. I think 99.99% of the time they can be explainable. Yes, I mentioned the O word, but at the same time, I'm not going to sit there and say to somebody, you're wrong, you're stupid for doing it, you're this, you're that. You know, it's social media. You're posting it somewhere. If it's on my page, I will post it as a comment, but it will be written in a way that at least shows respect for that person. I'm not going to, literally, with all respect, excuse my language, shit on their intelligence. I'm not going to, because I've been there before. I think it's a very delicate balance when it comes to dealing with people who are at a different level or a different reason for wanting to be a part of the paranormal, or being a paranormal investigator, or see themselves as that. So I think it's very, very important to keep that in mind when you're dealing with people. So for me, there is, I guess you could say, a middle level of investigator, and it's the only way I can explain. I thought of other ways. Like, what's a better? There's no better way. There's the general interest peeps. They walk in, and as myself, at previous, and lots of other people, they've seen a show, they've watched the shows, they're fascinated, they've had experiences, or they've been through their own experiences, and they want to know more. First, introductory, fabulous. Then they go to paranormal events, and they start to want, and they meet people, and they go, oh, there's another investigation at this location, or there's this happening at this location. What's going on here? And they start to want to know more. That's cool. And then it gets to the point, maybe a year after that, they're like, okay, I've gone past the basics. You know, what else could be happening? And that's where I come in, because there is this middle ground, and a lot of people aren't or don't have academic backgrounds where they're going to start writing research papers. They're going to do talks on data and statistics and stuff like that, which is great if they do. High five, all for that. Majority of people that are interested don't go into that path, or have that experience, or have a lot of academic background knowledge. So that's where I come in. It's like, but yet there's this disconnection. So you've got this fabulous, wonderful knowledge base of academic information and research that's been happening for over 100 years. And then you've got this new interest of people here that are kind of going, okay, I'm really interested, but I'm kind of past the beginner part. Where do I go? And there's this middle ground. And that's where I come in. And so that's why some of the information I will talk about multiverse, but the next time I'll be talking about a flashlight or using a torch in a certain way. So it is literally just branching that together in a way that's going to be like everybody can understand it. It's digestible for everybody. I'm not a research reader person. I think the information's great, but I get through the first 2 paragraphs and I'm kind of thinking about what I'm going to do for my shopping for tomorrow. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people that do start when it comes to paranormal investigating aren't research reading people. They're learners that are visual. visual learners. You're going to learn by doing. You're going to be learned by seeing or being shown. And also at the same time, audible. A lot of people are audible. Like, again, some people will be listening to this as opposed to watching it or anything like that. So those kind of learning environments should be adapted with this kind of information in a digestible way, and that's also where I see myself coming in as well. So it's breaking it down, but the thing is, I need to understand the content before I can produce it. So nothing I produce is something like, I have no idea how this works. I need to know how it works because I need to explain it. So yeah, it's a lot of research and a lot of learning in that regard, but to me, that's where my passion really does lie with this. It needs to. There is a middle level investigator, and they're starting to come out of the woodwork. There is that there. Very few. It's a very, very small group, much smaller than the general people that are just interested, or even the academics. But there is this middle ground, and no one's really providing anything that's information that's going to be something that for everybody to be able to understand. And that's my passion when it comes to it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I definitely feel like I hover around the middle ground, but sometimes I try to test the waters. Sometimes I talk over people's heads, and it just depends on how I'm able to restrain from doing that, because I'm a very analytical, very cerebral type person. I have to overanalyze everything and get all heady about it. But I think, what you said about how you approach people and with providing them information versus telling them whether they're right or wrong, I think that's the best way to go. Human nature, they're very tribal, especially now. It's very hard to dissuade someone from what they believe in, especially when you're pointing fingers. So I guess what I'm saying is, I agree with your method of trying to maybe provide some crossover, is to just put the information there. It's there for when they want to go look at it, and let them decide. Because probably 99 times out of 100, they're not going to listen to you if you're just mandating something or you're just forcing it down their throat. And it's a delicate balance. We have a question on YouTube. They want to know, what are your thoughts on shadow people?
Oh, cool. Very cool question. I've dealt with a shadow moving across a particular light that in a locked off area, personally myself, as far as an experience of a shadow, but a shadow person, I personally have not. My thoughts on shadow people, I don't think, I'm going on what mediums have told me about it, because for me, it's a lot of people will associate it with something negative. So a lot of people say, I've seen a shadow person, I see foreboding, it was negative, I felt negative. Some people, a lot of people actually see shadow people with a hat. Now I'm thinking, if they've got a really great wardrobe on the other side, why is it shadow people that've got the hats, nobody else? But jokes aside, shadow people with a hat is a very popular thing that people witness. So why is it a hat? Is it because the way the particular shape is it because we're already pre-programmed to see shadow people with a hat, because of over history and over time? Is it subconscious? Is it because of all this kind of stuff? So keep that in mind. My personal opinion, I think it's the way, like I said, my friend years ago said, why would spirit do that? So to me, sometimes, okay, so why would spirit produce themselves this way to you? Is it because it's safer? Is it safer to produce a way to view themselves to you without being in full apparition? Is that easier for you to digest as a person? Or is it because it's the stage a spirit is in their evolution? It could be one of the two. I personally lean towards the first, in the sense of, because I think there's more choice if there is an afterlife to pick which and what you do, which and how and how. So I think in that regard, I think it's more so the person or whatever it is coming through is actually producing its form for you to see it that way. But the thing is, what I find really interesting, like I said before, is people always associate something negative to it. Again, is it because of, with all respect, I mentioned the Ouija board thing. Is it because of history, the fact that Ouija boards have this reputation? Is it because that shadow people have this reputation of being negative? Is that more so the reason why, or is it the fact that that's how they want to present themselves to you, so you're not too taken over? A lot of people will see shadow people at the end of their bed, knowing that it's a past relative, without actually having to see the features. But maybe it's that energy being able to make that okay for that person to see them in that time as a time of comfort, because maybe it would have been too overwhelming to see everything and the fact that that's them. I'm not sure, but I think that could be more the potential reason as to possibly why they present themselves and why there are shadow people.
Yeah, that's interesting. It makes sense because living people, they put on clothing a certain way, they put on makeup a certain way, they present the way people want them to be perceived for the most part. But there's other people that will perceive them differently despite how they dress. So there is some variation when it comes to the motive you were talking about, how they want to be perceived and how they are perceived by the observer. So there's that gray area that you need to explore. Maybe there's physics going on with why they appear like a shadow. Maybe it's light being absorbed or being bent away from your eyes. There's so many things. That's why we love the paranormal, because you get to explore all these possibilities and toy with them, right? Nocturnal Research Society, he brought up a older video that he wanted me to watch, and you may have some insight on. What was your take on the skull experiment?
Now, I've only done a little bit of research on the skull experiment, but obviously I think it almost borders on another experiment called the Philip experiment, which is kind of similar in that way, where it's intention creating energy. I think for myself, when it comes to the skull experiment, I think that gives the possibility of more research to be done when it comes to poltergeist activity. I don't, for myself, always believe that it's a spirit attached to a location. I think it's actually more the people. From my own experience dealing with tour groups, and as I said, I've done quite a few events where you'll have one tour group go through, and you're running a paranormal investigation night, and it's off as chops, as we say in Australia, and then they'll move on, and the next people come along, and it's nothing. I think the people dynamic has a lot to do with it. I'm not really sure when it comes to poltergeist possible activity whether or not it really is something that is associated with the well-known theory of it being about teenagers being the ones that are actually instigating it or not. I still think there is so much about the body that we just have no idea about yet, and the brain as well. So with the skull experiment, I definitely believe there's intention when it comes to people's thoughts and making something happen and creating. I think there is potential for that. I know there was a gentleman in Australia who knows if hopefully he's watching, because he did message previously, but just before we went on air, who was actually looking at doing that and actually had created or intentionally created a particular entity at a location before an event. So there was a special event at this haunted location, and he's like, right, I'm going to be running a tour, so I'm going to, each time when I go to this place, is going to create this, so when this tour comes through, we're going to communicate with it. It got really intense that he had to leave. So I think there is definitely potential. I think there needs to be more skull experiments. Personally, myself, there's definitely something in it. I think, as I said, belief, whether it's placebo, fine. cheap medication, I don't care, or whether or not there's something going on. Whether or not, there has been studies and research, as we know, about things moving outside our body. Whether or not that's consciousness or anything else, we don't know yet. But there's something that is moving outside our bodies. Whether or not we're controlling it or containing it or creating it, we don't know yet, or have the proof, I should say, of that. So absolutely, skull experiment is incredible. If anyone hasn't heard of it before, go look it up. It's really, really interesting. There are YouTube videos, of some of it as well. Make your own mind up. Be as objective as you can, but do read up on it. It's a really, really great case. Really great case.
Yeah, Sandy Griffin asked what the skull experiment was, and my take on it was, it's a group of science skeptic but open-minded people trying to objectively investigate paranormal claims, like target certain things. The one I watched was about, I think there was the Italian ITC guy that did the direct radio voice stuff, and there was a group of trans mediums that did some stuff. The skull experiment did some experiments with. So, they're just a group of people, open-minded. They don't have any bias of whether it's real or not, and they're just trying to set up an experiment to see if there's anything that they can find that's trickery or find as false. And it's, there's YouTube videos and articles and a whole community based around those experiments. And that's, did I do it justice there, Beth?
You did okay. Very much so. Totally so. The one thing I will add to that is what they did was repetitive. So that's the only thing that they sat over years. They sat and did like a seance once a week for like a year or two, or it was repetitive. It was over time to see what would happen. And like you said, they were very level-headed. They were kind of like, let's just see what happens, blah blah blah. And things started to happen, and you will see and you will read of that. And so whether or not it's their want eventually over time because they're doing this every week, or maybe it was just the fact that they didn't want it, or they were just open-minded about it, or maybe anybody can do this, and it harks back to the old, the spiritualism of the 18th century, where there was so many mediums that popped up saying, I can claim to speak to the dead and make this move. Was the same thing happening to them? Were they actually able to do that? Can anybody do that? So there's kind of stuff, but it's fascinating stuff. And like it's the paranormal. You start to dig in, like, oh, this looks good. Oh, this looks, oh, I could do that. And it's just the rabbit warren. So fantastic question, but you did it justice. Absolutely.
Oh, great. To add on the trying to pin down what's going on, I think energy, a lot of people attack the word energy and its use in the paranormal field, especially if you're like a science guy. They're like, okay, what energy are you talking about? There's different forms. The basic definition is the ability to do work on physical systems. There's actually energy involved in the paranormal that's doing work on physical systems. They're moving things. They're physically manifesting things. They're doing things in the physical world, and it's energy. We don't know what type of energy. And I think if I just did a show yesterday, I do a Tuesday blog show on certain topics, and I tell people what I think. And if we put as much money as we finance in wars and entertainment and all this stuff into paranormal research, just imagine the progress we would make. It wouldn't be like people like me and you with, very limited resource and funds and education trying to answer all these questions. I just wish that it would happen, but I don't see in the near future that it will happen. But I guess that kind of leads into a question. Before I do that, is there any questions on Facebook before I do that? I don't want to leave them. No?
Nope.
Okay.
That was the only one.
All right.
Oh, wait. Yeah, no, there's not.
Are you sure?
She wanted to know, why does the YouTube always come up with such good questions? She said, I watch and try to just think of one, and I guess it's because I'm not an investigator, she said. Yeah,
when you stick around obsessing and of the paranormal a lot, you the questions can be very you come up with a lot of them. It's the more you look into it, the more questions you have. So that's definitely true. But with the energy topic, what do you think? how would you more elaborate or explain what this energy is? Is it like a psychokinetic thing? Because that's what I tend to see. It could explain a lot of phenomena. If our consciousness exceeds death or survives beyond death, it would make sense that, with the poltergeist you spoke of, if we can move things with our mind while we're alive, why can't we when we're dead? If we can speak when we're living, why can't we try to figure out how we can psychokinetically speak without a voice? Okay, because we're learning how to move things with our mind opposed than our hand. It's the same thing, we're learning how to speak without our mouths. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely a game changer. I mean, I think that is the reason why 90% of investigators are doing what they're doing, is because if there's a possibility for us to be able to move objects around with our minds now, what happens when we pass, and obviously people use the law of thermodynamics, second law is like, what doesn't die changes form. But what people also don't realize is the first law kind of counters that in a sense. It actually goes by heat anyway. Right? But at the end of the day, there is still a law of thermodynamics that says that this energy does not die. And that's a big reason why a lot of people use EMF detectors as bio EMF. Okay, so I'm going to, people have bio EMF, so when they pass away, the EMFs are still around, so that's a spirit moving about. But if you stick an EMF detector near somebody's body, it's not going to light up. That means the EMF is so minute, not even your detectors can pick it up. So why is it going to pick it up once you pass? So that's why I kind of challenge people a little bit with, it's like, okay, so you're using it and you're getting readings. Does that mean maybe when you pass over, that is nothing, or when you pass over, it's more? Does it grow? We don't know. We're trying this stuff out. Let's give it a shot. There needs to be more people doing this kind of stuff so we can say yes or no. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. Yeah. But yeah, with energy, I definitely lean more towards the PK stuff when it comes to object movement. I think it's less possibility of a spirit, but then again, there's been times. It's funny, there's been some YouTube videos that have been, and the thing is, you've got to take it with a grain of salt because you're not there, you're not seeing it happen, which I'm like, geez, if it is legit, if it isn't legit, there's some good trickery going on. And there's a guy in North Queensland, and people in Australia will know what I'm talking about, who is notorious with videos constantly of the place he's living in, where they're bang, 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 the doors are banging. He just puts the camera and the whole place is going off, and it continually goes off. So North Queensland Paranormal, also Paranormal of North Queensland, really interesting poltergeist videos to watch. Watch it again, like I said, as objectively as you can, because we don't know what's been hidden, we don't know what's not being hidden. At the same time, he could be legit as well. It could be activity surrounded by him. As I said, like, it could be something that is within him, that is triggering something within the environment that is making this happen. There could be another reason for this to be, or another explanation that this stuff's happening. It may not be paranormal, but there could be another explanation we just have not figured out yet. So to me, it's fascinating because being demonically possessed and spontaneous combustion, they were the three things I feared the most growing up.
That's a good segue, because someone just asked what you thought about demonology.
Oh my goodness, we do not have enough time for that.
You got to give them a taste.
Okay. All right. In a nutshell, I've come from, and again, I respect the fact where my upbringing is coming from. I did not grow up in a religious household, so I come from a very blank slate belief with that. Demonology, I think, from my research, and I do a talk on it, which actually goes into the depths of where it originated from. I believe demonology in itself is an explanation of the different types of demons according to different faiths. That's technically what demonology actually truly is to its form. That's what it is. It was a way to explain in the Middle Ages to early ages why bad things happen to good people. That's what demonology truly was. So why does Aunt Maud, who bakes her cakes and goes to church every Sunday, suddenly become sick and die? Because she's done great for the town and for society, and why should she get sick and die? So it was a way to explain bad stuff, because people didn't really understand science back then. So that's truly what demonology is, and it was a way through myth and through ways to explain that. I mean, there are certain demons that would be more powerful in April, and ones that would make you more lazy, and also and ones would be more about gluttony. So then, of course, to be a part of the church and to be a part of God meant that you were not of those things. You weren't lazy. You weren't going to be gluttony and anything like that. So that's what true demonology is, if you want to really look at that way. Today's standard is a very different ball game. People look at demonology very, very differently. They look at it as a way of explaining why people get scratches, like we talked about before, why people get sick or people feel oppressed or anything like that. And it's funny, because originally demonology was there to help explain why bad things happen to good people, but to me, from my perspective, it's continued on to still explain that in a society where we have science that can explain a big chunk of this. Now, I say this with a grain of salt because I've not been involved with a demonic case at all. That's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm not allowed to. And the reason being is because I'm not of Christian or Catholic faith, and so the church would not allow me to, because they see me as a risk in case something happens while I'm on that case, that the demon will leave and attach itself to me because I'm not of the church. So that is why. It's not because I want to, it's because I'm technically not allowed to. So but from my research, that's what I have found. So technically myself, from my experience and from my research at this point in time, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, I do not believe in demons. I don't believe in the fact that there is that. I think it's more from a person, like with poltergeist being from a person. I believe it from that perspective. I think it's just a different type of PK going on that we just don't understand. Plus, I also think a lot of mental health issues are going on in a way that we don't understand as well, or has not been explored myself personally. So that's where I stand. Like I said, I'm always happy to be challenged and or be shown else with regards to that.
Fair enough. I think that it does have a lot to do with based on your belief systems, and I more and more every day I feel that there is an ether. There's an ether that is involved in our intent, our conscious states, that manifest things in an energetic way that has effects on our physical systems. And I think that I would love to know if that could be proven or some evidence to shed light on that, because it would explain a lot of that type of phenomena. It would not say you're right and you're wrong. They would say you're both right. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, and I just thought it's an interesting question because, demonology, it's still a thing and it still thrives, and it's also pulp culture. Let's face it, movies, the horror genre, they really do a number on people's psyches when they want to manufacture fear as a form of entertainment, which is a whole nother show. We could totally go down that road and talk about that all day. At least I could. Jonathan, do you want to read what Jonathan had to say there a couple times there, Missy?
Yeah. Jonathan said, I have been investigating for years. I have seen some really crazy things. Me and two other lads went to Spain at the night time. We sat at a table outside the bar, and I noticed the ashtray was moving. At first, I thought I was going mad, and then I did it again, and then it did it again. When I looked at my friend, I could tell they seen it too. They both said, "Did you see that? It was mad."
That's not the first time I have heard that at a bar. The very first time I investigated a bar for like a year or two period, I had a free reign of a bar locally to me, and the phenomena they would report, some of it was captured on CCTV because they had security. I seen a whole shelf that was screwed into concrete, had nothing but shot glasses on top, and on the bottom they hung wine glasses from little rubber bands. And I watched that while there was no one there in the morning before it opened, rip off the wall, fly out this way, and crash to the ground. Completely unexplainable. And at the same location, she went to flip her cigarette, but she noticed the ashtray was a little bit too far away. And as she noticed that, the ashtray moved towards her, closer.
Oh.
And it freaked her out. And I'm like, okay,
Awesome.
this bars, bars, hospitals, schools, places that are saturated with a lot of PK have high strangeness. And when you mix water, flowing water, whether it be underground or surface water, with some other naturally occurring phenomena that are believed to enhance or cause a recipe for high strangeness, I think those are good places to investigate. And that kind of brings us into the next question I had. How relevant do you think that natural occurring anomalous phenomena may be perceived anomalous to us, like geomagnetic fields that are exceptionally high in locations, or places where fault lines are, or ley lines, or what have you? What type of environmental factors do you look into when you do your investigation, and do you believe that they contribute to high strangeness or paranormal phenomena?
Absolutely. There are, I obviously, for myself, if you're able to, and again, it depends on the location. So it could be a public location. There's a lot of information out on the internet anyway. So it's a great thing, but also not a great thing when it comes to the whole history side of things, if you don't want to be a part or learn of that. But when it comes to the whole geo-natural side of stuff, I think understanding your location, I think also understanding not just that, but the wildlife around as well. What's going to make those kinds of sounds when you're going to be out there in the day, in the night? I think, obviously, as you said, ley lines, it's a thing. Unless we know a little bit more about it, make a note of it. The location you could be looking at investigating might actually have ley lines or be on a ley line. If you're not sure what ley lines are, go and look it up. Not right now, not during the interview, but make a note. But yeah, really, really interesting. Again, there's a lot of people that believe that ley lines, the natural earth lines, actually are able to have this energy to them because they are almost like cracks within the earth, and because of that they actually bring out a certain sort of strength and obviously with magnetic fields and stuff like that. So there's that as well. I also think it's important to look at from a perspective of, and it's not as well known, and because there's not a lot of it around, but also granite. Granite can give out radiation as well. Just being aware and being known of the environment that you're in. So a lot of investigators will investigate around their either town and or cities or their countries. They're going to know this kind of information. In Australia, we had to be careful of possums. We had to be careful of sometimes there's when it came to certain weather conditions, you had to be careful about the heat. It's just kind of knowing the animals that are going to be around at that time, mosquitoes, all that kind of stuff. That's just more of an annoyance than anything to possibly do paranormal. Trust me, you don't want to have to go around that.
Bring the bug spray.
Yeah, totally bug spray. It doesn't matter what country you're in, bug spray the crap out of that. But it's, like you said, it's just getting used to your environment, knowing what's around there, but doing the history of the environment around it as well. So is it going to be limestone, sorry, my bad, limescales and sinks. I've been here too long in England. It's limescales all over the sinks here. But limestone I'm talking about is, where it's got quartz in it and stuff like that. And it's the whole theory of the fact that quartz retains that particular, or because they have quartz in radios and all that kind of stuff. So just knowing the materials of the environment that you're in, I think, is very, very important. I think that has a little bit more credibility of a possible paranormal phenomena, but also may give clues. And that's the biggest thing about this, is that we're not just here to kind of have fun. If you want to, that's fine too, but we're here to find patterns. That's what investigating is. You're finding patterns in stuff. Finding patterns in anomalous phenomena that's spontaneous can be really difficult, but there are ways in which you can, and that's through natural stuff and psychological stuff. So it's finding the natural stuff where you've got, okay, so I went to this location and there was quartz, and I went to this location, there was quartz, and I had these kinds of things happen. Maybe there's a pattern, make a note. Like, this can actually help you and your team with actual setting up of equipment, or finding out whether or not other people have had similar experiences. If there's a repeat, all you got to do is find patterns, and that's the interesting and intriguing part about investigating. Because there's sometimes there are people who will get involved with and go investigating for maybe a year or two, and they just go, oh, it's really boring. It's like, no, but you're not asking the right questions. Look for the patterns, find the stories from people, make the notes, and record it somewhere. And that's another big thing that I wish would happen. And I think there was a drive not that long ago. There was a guy in the States, along with worked along with Brian Kano, with doing a database of everybody's experiences in similar and same locations, so we can actually have a database of paranormal experiences and stuff, other data and bits and pieces, weather and all that kind of thing, something central, because that's what science is about. It's gathering information. It doesn't have to always be about experiments. It's gathering experiences, and that's what empirical evidence is about. It's gathering all this information, gathering people's thoughts and what happened and why it happened and all that. The humidity was this and blah. The moon phase was blah. This stuff could be affecting what's happening from a paranormal perspective, but we don't know the patterns unless we gather the data. And just having this lovely library, it would have been amazing. So I haven't checked up on that of late, I must admit. But geez, that would have been good, and that's such a great initiative to have. But yeah, absolutely, environment is really important. I think is one of the most important things. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree, and. Correlation, as science says, correlation doesn't necessarily, the causation is not, correlation is not synonymous necessarily, but it allows you to form the hypothesis, the idea, okay, if it's this, let's see if the trend continues or above a statistical value above chance, okay? And that's what they like looking at, right? If like they go into Beth's database that you just wanted to create, that you want to access, if a higher number of people experience the same phenomena at places where limestone is more prevalent, maybe their houses are built on limestone foundations, maybe there's limestone quarries around, so it's in the bedrock, okay? So you can pinpoint and actually maybe even find that there's a higher statistical chance of these reports. Then you can go, okay, that's a hypothesis. Maybe we can go here where there's no claims, set up an experiment to see if we can observe the same thing, develop our own claim. That's something you could do, and it's really foolproof. You can keep stacking data that way.
Absolutely.
All right. Is there any other questions on Facebook? I want to keep checking there.
Heather Elliott said, Paranormal Georgia has a database, and I had started a sheet to keep track of things, one being geology.
Excellent.
5 stars. That's the best.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who don't just meticulously track it, keep records, physical records. I use my investigation logs as records a lot. The residentials I have vary, the packet of the questionnaires and logs that way. But we don't do many of them. We go to the pay and play, and we go to the places with the legends and the claims, because that's more readily available, and we don't have to wait for someone to call, right? So when we do those, it's almost like, okay, I keep all this video data, all this audio data, and in your mind, you it's like a mental database. It's kind of like it develops, but it could be flawed if you do it like that. So it's definitely a good practice to write it down and then compare notes because the memory is flawed. I do see a question from, I forget who it was. They asked what you thought about time slips. I'll find out. Yes, it was Dark One from YouTube asked what you thought about time slips.
Oh, I think there needs to be more, obviously, we start to really kind of delve into the whole physics side of it. So time slip starts to go into the multiverse and, string theory, where there's one universe going here and there's one universe going here, and it could be, and then it kind of just skims past each other. I definitely think that's a possibility when it comes to residual hauntings, more so than anything that would be considered what we term as intelligent. But absolutely, I think that's a possibility. I think it's more of a possibility than what we think residual is. I would give it more, personally myself, at this point in time, more credence than what we call the stone tape theory. I think crystal quartz retaining something in an environment from an emotional perspective, maybe, because we use it, as I said, in radios, crystal quartz in radios. But I think string theory and the whole time slip stuff, I absolutely think that has way more, because it's not. I mean, people think about it. Like, people see carriages of horses and people and dogs, and scenes change. Like, we're not talking just about a person who's walking through and going through into the bathroom the same time every year kind of stuff. Like, there's got to be a situational thing. A carriage doesn't have a soul. The ground doesn't have a soul. Some people say trees do, or however you want to look at it. There are things, so how does it come back and then show itself? Like string theory and stuff like that, and obviously multiverse and things like that. I think, to me, gives way more credence to a scene playing out. Time is not linear. There's some physicists that say time is cubic, and then you really start to get kind of in your sense. We start getting really technical. Sometimes a little bit more technical than even I can understand. But yeah, absolutely, I think time slips are definitely a possibility when it comes to paranormal stuff. I don't think we should ever rule that out, and I personally think it gives more credence to residual phenomena than the actual current popular theme or popular thought of that, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely like to use scientific principles to explain or theorize about what could possibly be behind a lot of paranormal phenomena. And I like the concept of time. And I like researching what Einstein said, or actually discovered, about time. Time is like you said, it's not static. It's not a constant. So depending on the observer and the motion of the observer versus what you're observing, time can vary. Depending on mass, time can vary. Okay, so if there's variance in time based on just those things, why can't there be variance in time on other dimensions that could theoretically exist, okay, that you can interact with? Okay, I want to go outside the residual theory, because a lot of people, depending on their perception, maybe psychic ability, can interact with things in a different time if their perception tools can allow. Okay, so I love going down those rabbit holes, because it's hard for you to debate whether this is possible, because science is discovering and has evidence that's hard to refute about time. Time is not just, like you said, linear. My favorite part about time that we're figuring out is events in the future can affect events in the past. And that retrocausation is fascinating to me. And the whole wave function of quantum mechanics, the probability wave collapsing to what we are actually observing when we look, is fascinating too. So I believe that the paranormal exists in that whole messiness, that whole, murky wave probability function that's out there. We could be peering into things outside the collapse of those things. Sometimes there's alternate realities, dimensions that are not decohered from ours. Science says all they're decohered because, look, this wallet's always here when I look at it. Not all the time, sir. Not all the time. There are times where it is not. It'll go like this, go like that. It'll disappear. Where the heck is it? You go back. There it is. There's the paranormal, folks. It is not what science tells you all the time. And hence why we're here talking about it on this show, right?
Damn straight.
So learn about the quantum physics, folks. Beth will tell you and Justin will tell you, please. They are discovering why these things happen, but their own fears and their own biases are telling you that it's not possible. It's there, but we can't perceive it. I think that's horseshit. I think we can. People can. And the variance in our own perceptions and the variance in all these little factors come into play. You cannot test everything. You can't predict everything and pretend like you know everything. But you can see evidence of these possibilities. I just love the science intersecting with the paranormal. Finally, we're in an area where it's not so taboo and you don't sound as ridiculous as maybe you could of 20, 30, 40, even 50 years ago.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's interesting because I was chatting with a gentleman who is quite well known here in the UK. His name's Alan Murdie. If anyone wants to go and check him out, Murdie is spelled Murdie. Brilliant gentleman. Reason being is he is a lawyer, but he's also on the board of the Ghost Club. He's also an active member of SPR. And he has this beautiful, obviously, knowledge, experience, education with regards to law. So when it comes to witness testimony, when it comes to cases, if there are a lot of witnesses that, say for instance, will have actually collaborated in the sense of, we actually have seen this particular thing happen, and they're individually interviewed, not knowing each other, then in a court of law, that has weight. So why, when it comes to paranormal phenomena, that is not given the same credibility?
The answer is simple.
Exactly.
It's because it does not fit the narrative that they want to mandate to you. And it becomes dogmatic, right? It becomes the dogma. And once people understand how that works, you can start writing your own definitions to the reality that you're perceiving, despite what they're trying to mandate to you.
Yep.
So,
that's why I always say, mind is like a parachute, works better when it's open. Like I said, I have my thoughts on demonology, but you know what? I'm open to being challenged to that, because there have been people that get quite passionate about this. Said, I've experienced things that have been intense. I've been pushed and pulled. I've had shit pulled out from my bed and been dragged. I've had people being scratched. I've seen people being possessed. I've seen it, Beth. I'm like, okay, I'm open to being challenged, but that's the difference. I don't have a dogma. You know what I mean? In that sense, like you say, so that's the best way to be. And some people are like, you seem so skeptical sometimes. I'm like, but it's good to be skeptical, but I'm open to not being as well. So to me, being the middle ground, and you're going to sway. There are weeks or months where I'll kind of go a little bit more towards the believer camp, if you say, and then a little bit after a while, I'll kind of go towards the skeptic. It's okay to sway either way. I know for some people go from believer right out to skeptic to the point where they've left the field completely because they've gone, this is a bag of shit. I can't believe I believe this in the first place. And then I know of somebody who's done the opposite, who was part of the Australian Skeptic Society, who now considers himself as a physical medium. So he's gone the complete other way. Be open. It's okay to change your standpoint. I think it's very healthy to actually be accepting of that. And if you're around other people that don't, then you're not around the right people. So
awesome. Yeah, I agree. There's no better way to end this show. Can you believe it's been 2 hours already?
Get out. Oh, you're just getting started. I'm joking. It's okay. You can go home now.
Well, before we wrap this up, I want to thank you, Beth. You're a breath of fresh air in the paranormal field. Obviously, I enjoyed having you on and talking about the paranormal with you. Let's let you plug where your website and all the social media stuff's in the video description, but I want to give you the chance to vocally plug all that if you would like.
Oh, thank you. Yes, the website is accessparanormal.com. I'm on Twitter, which is accesspara, and obviously on Facebook, which is obviously Access Paranormal as well. You can sign up on the website for the newsletter to get all the fun stuff, all the educational information, all the updates of anything that's happening, but do go and check it out if you want to. There's a learning page on the website as well, so if you want to check it out. If you're just starting out, you just click on the just starting out. There's a toolkit section too, which is some great free software download converting types tools as well, so you can go in through there and check that out too if you're just getting started as well. So some great handy information there on the Access Paranormal website.
Thank you, Beth. I'm going to wrap up the show. If you want to hang out on the call, you can while we do this. If you need to go, we will see you some other time, maybe on the show again.
Cool. That'd be awesome.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving
Yes.
to you guys. And thank you for watching. Please go hit up her website. Websites cost money. They take time to, keep up, and, it evolves and changes as it goes. So go to her website, find out where all of her social media platforms are. She is open to engagement. She'll answer your questions. If you email her or message her with direct messaging on social media, she is very open and very friendly to anybody who is curious or wants to learn something. Please do that. And we're going to go to the links on my end of the things. Interfacedeath.net is where you can find all the source material of everything we do, all of our shows, video content, everything. So please consider checking that out if you have not already. We also have a subscription you can sign up for and an app to help navigate everything. Patreon.com is where you can financially support what we do and invest in our paranormal research and get rewards for it. You can check that out. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check out the show on Facebook.com, Necromancer Live Show, if you would like. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we are on Twitch TV, and you can join us on Discord if you would like. We are very talkative on that as well. Please extend your thanks to the people who've financed our shows, our productions, everything that we do. Clay Borman, Scotty Fox, Katie Turner, RJ Murphy, Casey Schreiner, Deadlight LLC, Jessica Bias, Paranormal Reporter, Joe Vitale, Heather Elliott, Betty Kegley, Cherry Capital Shadow Seekers, Kelly McConkey, The Ghost Guild, and Anthony Grothis. Please extend your thanks to them. They make this show free for you guys to watch and make it, here to stay and get better and better as we go along. And that's where I'm going to leave it, folks. If you want to stick around and watch more of the promos, if you did not get to see them at the halfway mark, you can stick around and watch that. Check out Deadlight LLC, RU Media Network, Paranormal Quest, all that stuff is coming up. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week, and happy Thanksgiving. And do you have that drive? That morbid curiosity to explore the darkness? Do you have what it takes to brave the night? You do? Good.
see you. What the fuck was that?
On Saturday, November 30th, take your journey into the supernatural into one of Ohio's most wicked jails. Built in 1889, the old Licking County Jail was home to its fair share of dangerous inmates, leading to 14 inmate deaths as well as 4 sheriffs. These violent deaths inevitably led to the closure of the jail in 1987. Join us for a night of history and an overnight ghost hunt you'll never forget. Your journey awaits.
This is Jason Bland, host of Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup, where we stream live as a webcast every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern, with guests who will blow your mind. Live ghost box sessions where you can call into the show to see if the spirits will talk to you, and the world wide web of weird with the latest in paranormal news and evidence. We're bringing the weird every Sunday night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.
Your audio from your lavalier. Did the power go off?
Well, I felt like I got pinched. But it wasn't like a
Did the display turn off?
This just died.
You gotta be kidding me.
It just died.
Okay, that's brand new lithium-ion batteries. We'll keep rolling. Dude, there's...
Yeah, but at least that one's definitely documented it. But that's still rolling, that camera.
Oh, yeah, this is rolling too.
Yeah, these just freaking died.
Let me double check.
I held it in, the light came on to the title screen. And
Dude, I'm starting to feel really, like, weird sensations touching me, dude. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it felt like something... Yeah, like just dead as a doornail. And those are brand new.
Hi, I'm Eric McGill.
And I'm David Woolever.
And we are paranormal investigators welcoming you to join us as we put new theories to the test and attempt to explain strange phenomena. We invite you on a journey that will give you a glimpse into our haunted minds. Hi guys, Eric McGill here, RU Media Network and Our Haunted Minds. I just want to talk to you guys real quick about the awesome stuff going on behind the scenes. The Our Haunted Minds video is coming along swimmingly and it's really going to be awesome. As you guys know, Adam Kimmel is joining us for the first investigation with Dave and I. And then after that, we may have Chris, or we may have Becca, or we may have Ashley, but it's really exciting and you guys are not going to want to miss this first one. A lot of awesome stuff happened.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Goose.
And I'm Michael Bradley.
Is that what you're calling yourself tonight?
Heisenberg.
Not the Angry Kitty.
Max Braggins.
Anywho, we're the hosts of the Cryptic Paranormal Show.
On our show, we'll talk about all things paranormal except Bigfoot. He freaks me out.
Really, dude?
You know that, but I guess we could talk about him as long as I don't have to see him.
We will talk. As a matter of fact, we'll talk about all fields in the paranormal realm.
And every week, we will interview new guests, celebrities, and researchers in the field, and all our comrades in the paranormal underground.
And we aren't afraid to ask the hard questions no one else will. Our conversations are rooted in our own experiences as paranormal investigators.
So be prepared to have your minds, your opinions, and your beliefs challenged.
And let's not forget to warn them about all the tomfoolery and shenanigans. Let's just say, you might want to put the kiddos to bed before tuning in. They don't call us the paranormal shock jocks for nothing.
Do they call us that?
If they don't, they will.
So be sure to tune into the Cryptic Paranormal Show every Thursday night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only on RU Media Network.
Spook you later, crypto heads.
Bye.
Shut up.
Welcome into the Abyss with your host, Sean Gilmore. Open your mind, both of your ears, and all three of your eyes to discuss all things supernatural with weekly special guests. We believe that we all learn from each other and we all have a lot to learn. What will you learn today? Here is your host, Sean Gilmore.